The room applauded. They didn't realize they were clapping at the end of her life. Crystal chandeliers glittered above Manhattan's elite as Zyla Carter stood beside her husband, smiling the smile she'd practiced for years, elegant, obedient, invisible. Then Ethan spoke. "Zyla and I have decided to open our marriage." The words landed like a public execution. 300 people learned, in real time, that she had been replaced, not privately, not respectfully, but strategically. Senators paused mid-conversation. Trust fund heirs exchanged glances. A tech mogul's wife covered her mouth, eyes wide with second-hand horror. Zyla felt her spine stiffen. Her champagne glass trembled just slightly in her hand. The navy gown she'd chosen so carefully, the one Ethan had approved that morning, suddenly felt like a costume for someone else's humiliation. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She walked. The marble hallway outside the ballroom stretched before her like an escape route. Her heels clicked against the floor, each step a declaration she didn't yet understand. Behind her, polite murmurs erupted into gossip. Someone laughed. Someone else whispered her name like a diagnosis. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. Zyla barely registered the collision until it was too late. Red wine splashed across expensive fabric. Her breath caught. She looked up. He was calm in a way powerful men are calm. Not charming. Not loud. Dangerously certain. His suit was dark, perfectly tailored. His expression didn't shift when the wine stained the lapel. He simply stood there, studying her with the kind of attention that made her feel seen for the first time in years. Not assessed. Not judged. Seen. Behind her, footsteps stopped. Zyla turned slightly. Ethan stood frozen in the hallway entrance, his face drained of color. His mouth opened, then closed. His body language shifted, shoulders tightening, jaw clenching. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Fear. Her husband was afraid. The stranger's gaze moved from the wine staining his suit to Zyla's shaking hands. Then he looked at Ethan, and something passed between them. Not words. Understanding. The kind that exists between predator and prey. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, controlled, deliberate. "Let me replace your husband." Not a joke. Not a pickup line. An offer. Zyla's breath stopped. The hallway seemed to tilt slightly. She searched his face for sarcasm, for cruelty, for the punchline. There was none. Only certainty. He didn't beg. Didn't explain. Didn't repeat himself. Ethan took a step backward. That night, Zyla didn't know she'd just stepped into a world where protection had a price and dignity had power. She didn't know this stranger's name would become synonymous with safety. She didn't know that in 90 days, everything Ethan built would crumble. She only knew one thing. The life she was living was over. And something far more dangerous was about to begin. The Manhattan Global Finance Gala was designed to remind people of their place. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen waterfalls. Tables draped in cream silk bore centerpieces of white orchids flown in from Singapore. The guest list read like a Forbes power ranking. Billionaires, senators, CEOs whose decisions moved markets, legacy families whose names were carved into buildings across 3 continents. Zyla Carter had attended this event for 5 years. Each time, she'd smiled on cue, laughed at the right moments, and disappeared into the background of her husband's success. Tonight was supposed to be no different. She stood beside Ethan at their designated table, her posture perfect, her expression practiced. The navy gown she wore had been his choice, modest neckline, elegant draping, nothing that drew too much attention. He'd told her she looked appropriate that morning. She'd taken it as the compliment he'd intended. Around them, conversations hummed with the particular energy of people who controlled things. A senator's wife discussed vacation homes in Aspen. A hedge fund manager debated cryptocurrency regulations. Ethan's business partner, Marcus, gestured animatedly about a merger that would reshape the industry. Zyla sipped champagne and nodded when expected. Then the MC tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker needs no introduction. Ethan Carter, visionary CEO, philanthropist, and tonight's keynote presenter." Applause rippled through the ballroom. Ethan squeezed Zyla's hand briefly before stepping toward the stage. She watched him move with the confidence of someone who'd never questioned his right to occupy space. He adjusted the microphone, smiled that practiced smile, began his speech about innovation, leadership, and building legacies that last. Zyla had heard variations of this speech dozens of times. She let her mind drift slightly, already planning her responses to the inevitable post-event small talk. Yes, we're so proud. Yes, he works incredibly hard. Yes, we're very blessed. Then Ethan's tone shifted. Before I conclude, I want to share something personal. Zyla's attention snapped back. Personal wasn't part of the script. Ethan never deviated from prepared remarks. He looked directly at her, smiled wider. My wife and I have been discussing the evolution of modern relationships. How traditional structures can sometimes limit growth. How honesty and transparency create stronger foundations. A cold sensation began spreading through Zyla's chest. So tonight, I'm proud to announce that Zyla and I have decided to open our marriage. Silence crashed through the ballroom. Not the polite, anticipatory silence before applause. The stunned, suffocating silence of people processing something they shouldn't have witnessed. Zyla's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Her brain struggled to process the words, to reorder them into something that made sense. Open our marriage. He'd said it, out loud, into a microphone, in front of 300 people whose opinions shaped industries. We believe this represents a mature, progressive approach to partnership. Ethan continued, his voice smooth, practiced. One that honors individual autonomy while maintaining our commitment to each other. He said it like announcing a corporate restructuring. Zyla felt every eye in the room shift to her. Not curious glances, dissecting stares. She could see the calculations happening in real time. Did she agree to this? Does she know? Is she okay? A woman at the neighboring table leaned toward her companion, whispering behind perfectly manicured fingers. The senator's wife stared openly, her expression a mixture of pity and fascination. Marcus caught Zyla's eye across the table. His face had gone carefully neutral, the look of someone witnessing a car accident and pretending not to notice. Ethan kept talking, something about redefining success in all areas of life, but Zyla couldn't hear him anymore. The words blurred into white noise beneath the roaring in her ears. She'd been demoted. Publicly. Strategically. Not through divorce, which would have cost him in the prenup. Not through separation, which would have damaged his image. Through this, a performance of progressive thinking that allowed him to keep her as decoration while pursuing whatever, whoever, he actually wanted. And he'd done it in front of everyone who mattered. Applause began. Scattered at first, then building. Not enthusiastic. Obligatory. The kind of applause people give when they're uncertain what else to do. Ethan stepped away from the microphone, still smiling. Zyla set down her champagne glass with mechanical precision. Her hands didn't shake. Her expression didn't crack. Years of training, of being the perfect corporate wife, held her together. She stood, smoothed her gown, and walked. Not quickly, not dramatically. Simply walked toward the exit with the dignity of someone who'd just remembered an important appointment elsewhere. Behind her, the murmurs began. The hallway outside the ballroom stretched like an airport terminal. Marble floors, recessed lighting, abstract art that cost more than most people's homes. Zyla's heels clicked against the floor with a rhythm that matched her racing heartbeat. She wasn't crying, wasn't running. She simply needed to be anywhere else. Open marriage. The words replayed in her mind like a glitch. She'd given Ethan 5 years. 5 years of attending his events, supporting his career, shrinking herself to fit his vision of an appropriate wife. And he'd thanked her by announcing to Manhattan's elite that she wasn't enough. She turned a corner, not paying attention to where she was going, focused only on putting distance between herself and that ballroom. The collision was inevitable. Red wine splashed across dark fabric. A glass shattered against marble. Zyla stumbled backward, her breath catching. I'm so sorry I didn't. She looked up. The man before her didn't react the way most people would. No irritation. No surprise. He simply stood there, wine dripping from his suit jacket, studying her with an attention that made her forget how to finish her sentence. He was Korean, she thought. Tall. Maybe late 30s. His suit was bespoke, the kind that didn't come with price tags because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. But it wasn't the suit that made him remarkable. It was the stillness. In a room full of people who performed confidence, he simply was confident. The difference was absolute. I'm so sorry, Zyla repeated, reaching uselessly toward the wine stain. I wasn't watching where I was. You're running. His voice was low, precise. unaccented English with the particular clarity of someone who'd learned the language through education rather than immersion. I'm not. Zyla stopped. She was running. They both knew it. Behind her, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Zyla. Ethan's voice. Careful. Controlled. She turned slightly. Her husband stood 15 feet away, his expression tight. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the man behind her. And his posture had changed completely. The confident, commanding CEO who'd just announced their private life to 300 people now looked like a man who'd walked into the wrong room. His shoulders had tightened. His jaw clenched. His hands, usually so expressive during speeches, hung rigid at his sides. Zyla had been married to Ethan for 5 years. She'd never seen him look afraid. The stranger's gaze moved from the wine on his jacket to Zyla's shaking hands, then finally to Ethan. Something passed between them. Not words. Recognition. The kind that exists in hierarchies most people never see. Mr. Carter, the stranger said. Not a question. Ethan took a step backward. June. Just one word. Just a name. But Ethan said it the way someone might say IRS audit or terminal diagnosis. June. The stranger, June, looked back at Zyla. His expression didn't soften, but something in his eyes shifted. Understanding, maybe. Or calculation. You're his wife. Not a question. Yes, Zyla managed. And he just announced you're available. The words landed like a slap. Not cruel. Clinical. A statement of fact that cut through every euphemism Ethan had used. Zyla's breath caught. That's not. That's exactly what he did. June's voice remained calm, almost gentle. In front of 300 witnesses. He made you accessible while keeping you attached. It's strategic. Ethan moved forward slightly. June, this is a private. Private. June didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. You made it public 15 minutes ago. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop. Ethan stopped moving. Zyla watched her husband calculate, recalculate, and choose silence. June turned his full attention back to Zyla. How long have you been married? 5 years. Children. The question hit harder than it should have. No. His choice or yours? Zyla's throat tightened. We've been trying. It just hasn't. His choice, June said quietly. And somehow he knew. He saw something in her face, or maybe in Ethan's reaction, that told him everything. He reached into his jacket, extracted a card, and held it out. Black cardstock. Minimalist design. Just a name and a phone number. June Siohan. The name meant nothing to Zyla. But Ethan's face had gone pale. You're very talented, Mr. Carter, June continued, his eyes still on Zyla. You've built an impressive company. Made strategic alliances. Married well. The pause was surgical. But you've just made a significant miscalculation. June, we don't need to. No, we don't. June's voice cut through Ethan's like a blade through water. But your wife does. He looked back at Zyla, and for the first time that night, someone spoke to her like she was capable of making decisions. Let me replace your husband. The hallway tilted. Zyla stared at him, certain she'd misheard. I'm sorry. You heard me. No smile. No charm. Just an offer, delivered with the same tone someone might use to discuss stock portfolios. Whatever he's provided, status, security, lifestyle, I'll replace it. Better terms. More respect. You're joking. I don't joke about business. This isn't business. This is marriage. June's expression didn't change. He just turned your marriage into a business transaction. I'm simply offering better terms. Zyla's mind spun. This was insane. She'd known this man for 90 seconds. He'd just offered to replace her husband, like discussing a corporate merger. Behind her, Ethan finally found his voice. Zyla, don't listen to. Why not? June interrupted. She listened to you announce her humiliation to Manhattan's elite. Seems only fair she hears alternatives. Ethan's face flushed. You can't just. I can. 2 words. Absolute certainty. June looked back at Zyla, and she saw something unexpected in his eyes. Not attraction. Not manipulation. Respect. You have 48 hours to decide, he said quietly. After that, the offer expires. Not because I'm impatient, but because opportunities have windows. He handed her the card. Their fingers brushed briefly. His hand was warm, steady. Then he turned to Ethan. Mr. Carter. Always a pleasure. He walked past them both, wine-stained jacket and all, moving with the unhurried confidence of someone who'd already won. Zyla stood frozen, card in hand. while her husband struggled to find words. Finally, Ethan managed. "Do you have any idea who that was?" "You do," Zyla said quietly. "Jun Seohan owns half the commercial real estate in 3 countries. Ethan stopped, running his hand through his hair. "Zyla, you can't be considering. You just announced our marriage was open," Zyla interrupted. Her voice was calm, eerily calm. "In front of everyone we know. You made that decision without asking me. That's different." "Why? Because you made the choice?" She looked down at the card in her hand. "Black. Simple. Expensive. Maybe it's my turn." She walked past Ethan, back toward the ballroom, leaving him standing alone in the hallway. For the first time in 5 years, Zyla Carter had options. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Carter had competition. Zyla didn't go home that night. She checked into the plaza, using her personal credit card, the one Ethan didn't monitor. The suite was elegant, impersonal. She sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing her gown, staring at Jun's card. Her phone had been ringing for an hour. Ethan. Marcus. 3 other numbers she didn't recognize. She'd silenced them all. At 2:47 a.m., exhaustion finally outweighed shock. She changed into the hotel robe, removed her makeup with methodical precision, and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back was 32 years old. Beautiful, according to everyone who'd ever commented. Well-educated, well-connected, and, as of tonight, publicly available. She thought about the last 5 years. The careful erosion of her career. The endless fertility treatments Ethan had insisted on, each failure another reminder of her inadequacy. The way her opinions had slowly stopped being solicited in conversations. How she'd become an accessory to his success rather than a person with her own. Open marriage. He'd found a way to keep her as set dressing while pursuing his real life elsewhere. Zyla picked up her phone, scrolled to a number she hadn't called in 3 years. Simone LeBlanc. Even at 3 a.m., her former law school roommate sounded alert. "It's Zyla. Jesus. I saw the videos." Videos. Of course there were videos. Someone had posted Ethan's announcement. It was probably trending. "I need a lawyer," Zyla said quietly. "Honey, you need 3 lawyers, a PR team, and possibly witness protection." Simone's tone softened. "Where are you?" "The plaza." "Smart. Don't go home. I'll have divorce papers drawn up by noon." "Wait." Simone paused. "Wait." Zyla looked at the card on the nightstand. "I need 48 hours first." "For what?" "To make a better decision than he did." The text came at 9 a.m. "Dinner. Tonight. 11 Madison Park. Private room. JSH. Not a question. An instruction." Zyla stared at the message for 10 full minutes before responding. "Why?" The reply was immediate. "Because you're intelligent enough to be curious and desperate enough to say yes." She should have been offended. Instead, she laughed, a sharp, unexpected sound in the quiet hotel room. He was right. On both counts. 8 p.m. 7. Don't be late. 11 Madison Park occupied a full building in the Flatiron District. Michelin stars. 6-month waiting list. The kind of place Ethan took clients when he needed to impress. Zyla arrived at 6:58 p.m. wearing a black dress she'd owned since before her marriage. Simple. Elegant. Hers. The maitre d' recognized her name immediately. "Ms. Carter. Mr. June is expecting you." He led her through the dining room, past senators, celebrities, foreign dignitaries, to a private room in the back. The door opened. June stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. He'd changed from the wine-stained suit into something charcoal gray. When he turned, his expression was unreadable. "You came." "I'm curious," Zyla said, and apparently desperate. "Honest." He gestured to the table. "Sit." She did. He sat across from her. No small talk. No pretense. "Tell me about your marriage." "That's your opening line?" "Yes." Zyla studied him. "Why do you care?" "Because I'm considering acquiring it," June said simply. "I do thorough research before major acquisitions. I'm not a company." "No. You're more valuable." He leaned back slightly. "Companies can be rebuilt. Reputations are harder." A server appeared with wine. June waved it away. "Water." "And the tasting menu. No modifications." When they were alone again, he continued. "Ethan Carter. Harvard Business. Built Carter Enterprises from a trust fund and good timing. Smart investor. Better networker. But fundamentally insecure." Zyla blinked. "How do you?" I know everything about everyone I might do business with, including their wives. His gaze didn't waver. You went to Columbia, studied architecture, won awards, started your own firm, closed it 6 months after marrying Ethan. Her throat tightened. He needed support building the company. He needed an accessory who wouldn't compete. June's voice remained neutral. You gave up your career, your identity, your autonomy, and he thanked you by replacing you publicly while keeping you attached legally. Why? The word came out sharper than intended. Why do you care? Because I don't tolerate waste, June said simply. And watching talented people get erased bothers me. So this is charity? No. It's strategy. He leaned forward slightly. I need something. You need something. We can help each other. What could you possibly need that I could provide? Legitimacy. Zyla frowned. You own half the commercial real estate in 3 countries. What legitimacy do you lack? The kind that comes from American society acceptance. Old money trusts old money. Legacy families trust legacy families. His expression didn't change. They don't trust Korean immigrants who built wealth through work rather than inheritance. That's racist. That's reality. June shrugged slightly. I've accepted it. But it limits certain opportunities, certain investments, certain social circles that translate to business access. And I provide what? A black woman married to an Asian man? That doesn't seem. You provide exactly what you provided Ethan. Credibility through association. Except I'll actually value it. The appetizers arrived. Zyla ignored hers. What are you offering? Protection, resources, respect. And when this ends, because all arrangements end, a better position than you're in now. When this ends, June met her gaze steadily. I don't make promises I can't keep. I can promise you won't be humiliated again. I can promise security. I can promise you'll rebuild what Ethan made you give up. He paused. I can't promise forever, but I can promise better than what you have. Zyla sat back. This was insane. Practical. Terrifying. Strategic. What are the terms? Public relationship. Real enough that people believe it. Private boundaries we establish together. You maintain autonomy over your time, your career, your life. I provide security and resources. And intimacy. Your choice. Always. His voice was firm. I don't require affection. I require partnership. What if I develop feelings? Then we'll handle it honestly. June's expression finally shifted. Not quite a smile. I'm not afraid of emotions, Miss Carter. I'm afraid of dishonesty. Zyla looked at the untouched food, the expensive wine, the man who'd offered to replace her husband with the same tone someone might use discussing stock portfolios. 48 hours, she said quietly. You gave me 48 hours. I did. I need them. June nodded. Signaled the server. Box everything. Miss Carter is leaving. I can stay. You can. But you won't think clearly here. He stood, helping her with her chair. Take the time. Make the right choice. Not the desperate one. At the restaurant entrance, he handed her the boxed meal and his card again. Call when you decide. Not before. Zyla walked out into the Manhattan night, carrying food she wouldn't eat and a decision that would change everything. Behind her, Jun Seohan returned to his table and made a single phone call. Start the divorce paperwork. She'll need it by Friday. Zyla called at 3 a.m. on the second night. June answered on the first ring. Yes. I have conditions. Name them. She'd written them down, refined them, rehearsed them. But hearing his voice, calm, certain, made her breath catch. I want my career back. Not permission to have it. Actual support rebuilding it. Done. I own 7 buildings that need architectural redesign. You'll have first bid on all of them. I want separate spaces. Separate homes when needed. I have properties in 5 cities. Choose 3. They're yours. I want control over how we present this publicly. I won't be paraded around. You'll be partnered with, not displayed. We decide appearances together. Zyla paused. This was too easy. What do you want? Attendance at specific events. Professional demeanor. Honesty about when this becomes untenable. June's voice remained steady. And one non-negotiable. Her stomach tightened. Which is, you don't go back to him. Whatever happens between us, you don't return to a man who erased you. That's not non-negotiable. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Zyla asked the question keeping her awake. Why me? Of all the people you could strategically partner with, why someone else's wife? Because you're already paying the price without receiving the benefits, June said simply. And because when I saw you in that hallway, you weren't broken. You were furious. Fury can be shaped. Brokenness can't. That's not romantic. I'm not offering romance. I'm offering partnership. What if I want romance? The pause lasted 3 seconds, long enough for her to regret the question. Then we'll see if it develops honestly, June said finally. But I won't perform it for appearances. Zyla closed her eyes. Took the leap. When do we start? Friday. Move out while he's at work. My team will handle logistics. Your team? You didn't think I'd make you pack boxes yourself? Despite everything, Zyla smiled. One more condition. Yes. Stop being right about everything. It's unsettling. I'll try. I probably won't succeed. She hung up before she could change her mind. Friday arrived like an execution date. Zyla stood in the penthouse she'd shared with Ethan, watching June's team work with military precision. They'd arrived at 9 a.m. Ethan had left for a board meeting at 8:45. She'd taken only what was hers. Clothes, books, her laptop, the architectural designs she'd never shown anyone. Everything else, the furniture Ethan had chosen, the art he'd purchased, the life he'd built around her like a cage, stayed. Ms. Carter, June's assistant, a woman named Minji with severe glasses and perfect posture, handed her a folder. Divorce papers. Filed this morning. Mr. June's legal team is handling everything. Sign page 7, 9, and 18. Zyla stared at the documents. This fast. Mr. June doesn't wait when decisions are made. Minji's expression softened slightly. He also doesn't allow backing out. Once these are signed, he'll become very invested in your success. Is that a warning? It's information. Minji handed her a pen. He protects his investments. Aggressively. Zyla signed. Her hand didn't shake. One more thing. Minji produced a phone. New number. Only 5 people have it. Your lawyer. Your accountant. Me. Mr. June. And the security team he's assigned to you. Security team? Non-negotiable. Minji's tone suggested arguing was pointless. You're now associated with someone who makes powerful people nervous. You'll have protection whether you notice it or not. The movers finished. The penthouse looked exactly as it had that morning, minus Zyla's presence. Like she'd never existed there. Minji drove her to June's building. Not his primary residence, but a property in Tribeca with a separate entrance. The apartment was beautiful, modern, empty. Mr. June thought you'd prefer to furnish it yourself, Minji explained. Budget is unlimited. Send me invoices. Where is he? Tokyo. Business. He'll return Tuesday. Minji headed toward the door, then paused. Ms. Carter? He doesn't do this lightly. Whatever arrangement you've made, he'll honor it completely. But if you betray his trust, you'll understand why powerful people fear him. She left. Zyla stood alone in an empty apartment, divorced by proxy, protected by invisible security, and partnered with a man she'd known for 72 hours. Her phone buzzed. New message. Welcome home. JSH. Their first public appearance was planned with military precision. The American Architecture Foundation Gala. Black tie. Every major firm in attendance, including Ethan. He'll be there, June said during their Tuesday briefing at his office. He'd returned from Tokyo that morning, looking unfairly alert despite the time change. I know. And Zyla met his gaze. And nothing. I'm not going for him. I'm going for me. June nodded approvingly. Good. We arrive at 8. Leave at 10. 3 hours is enough to make the point without dwelling. What point? That you've upgraded. The gala was everything Zyla remembered. Crystalline elegance, intellectual posturing, architectural models displayed like art. She wore emerald green. June wore black. They matched without coordinating. The whispers started the moment they entered. Is that Zyla Carter? Who's she with? That's June Seo-han. Oh my God. Ethan spotted them within 5 minutes. His face drained of color. Marcus, standing beside him, actually took a step backward. June's hand rested lightly on Zyla's lower back. Not possessive. Protective. Would you like to speak with him? June asked quietly. No. Good instinct. They circulated. June introduced her to developers, investors, foundation board members. Not as his date. As an architect. He redirected every conversation to her expertise, her vision, her portfolio. Ms. Carter studied under Richard Rogers, he told a real estate mogul. Her thesis on sustainable urban housing won Columbia's highest award. You should see her vertical garden designs, he informed a zoning commissioner. Revolutionary integration of green space in high-density environments. By 9 p.m., Zyla had 3 potential clients and 2 job offers. By 9:30, Ethan had approached them twice and been politely redirected by June's presence alone. At 10, they left exactly as planned. In the car, Zyla finally exhaled. You memorized my thesis? I read it. Memorization was incidental. June glanced at her. You're remarkably talented. Why did you stop? The question hurt because it was sincere. Ethan needed support. Ethan needed an accessory. You gave him an architect and he chose not to use her. June's voice hardened slightly. That ends now. Zyla looked out the window at Manhattan blurring past. Why does this matter to you? Because waste offends me. And because, June stopped. Because I know what it's like to be underestimated based on factors you can't control. Gender, race, origin. He met her eyes. I won't participate in doing that to someone else. The car pulled up to her building. June walked her to the door. Same time next week, he said. Urban Planning Commission dinner. Boring speeches. Important connections. Will Ethan be there? Probably. Good. Zyla surprised herself with the word. Let him watch. June's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile. You're learning quickly. I had a good teacher in humiliation, she said quietly. Now I'm learning something better. Which is, how to walk forward instead of away. June nodded. Stepped back. Good night, Zyla. It was the first time he'd used her first name without formality. Good night, June. She went upstairs to an apartment she was slowly making hers, carrying business cards from people who saw her as more than decoration. Behind her, June sat in his car and made a single call. Double her security. Carter's getting desperate. The first threat came via email. Zyla opened her laptop Tuesday morning to find a message from an unfamiliar address. No subject line. Just a link to a gossip site with the headline, Billionaire's Abandoned Wife Trades Up? Zyla Carter's Calculated Rebound. The article was vicious. Strategic. It painted her as a gold digger who'd manipulated a progressive marriage arrangement to secure a wealthier partner. It questioned her education, her career, her motives. It included photos from the architecture gala, her hand on June's arm, his attention fixed on her face, with captions suggesting calculation rather than connection. Every quote was from sources close to the Carter family. Zyla's hands shook as she read. This was Ethan. His particular brand of warfare, destroy the narrative before she could control it. Her phone buzzed. June. Saw the article. Ignore it. I'm handling this. She called him immediately. How are you handling it? By removing the source of funding from the publication. You can't just. I own 40% of their parent company. I absolutely can. His voice was calm. Clinical. It'll be retracted by noon. That's not. You can't use power like that every time someone. Watch me. The line disconnected. By 11 a.m., the article was gone. By 2 p.m., the publication had issued a formal apology. By 4 p.m., 3 other gossip sites had published pieces praising Zyla's architectural work and questioning why she'd ever been reduced to society wife status. When June called that evening, Zyla answered immediately. You can't do that. I just did. That's not partnership, that's protection. June's voice sharpened. You're under attack from a man with resources and motivation. I won't let him control the narrative. But you controlling it is better? Silence stretched between them. Finally, June said, You're right. I should have asked first. Zyla blinked. What? You're right. I overstepped. It won't happen again without consultation. He paused. But understand something, Zyla. I've built my reputation on never abandoning partnerships. If someone attacks you, they attack me. And I respond accordingly. That's terrifying. It's survival. His voice softened slightly. Would you prefer I'd done nothing? Zyla sat on her couch, staring at her laptop where the article had been. No, she admitted. But I prefer being asked. Noted. I'll endeavor to be less efficient and more collaborative. Despite everything, she smiled. Are you being sarcastic? Yes. But I'm also being genuine. Your autonomy matters. Even when I'm protecting you. They hung up. Zyla returned to her designs, but her mind kept drifting to the conversation. June's particular brand of care, aggressive, strategic, effective. It should have felt suffocating. Instead, it felt safe. The second threat came in person. Zyla was leaving her building Thursday evening when Ethan appeared in the lobby. He looked terrible, exhausted, disheveled, desperate. Zyla, please. 5 minutes. She should have walked past him. Should have called security. Instead, she stopped. 2 minutes. This is insane. Ethan's voice cracked. You don't know June. You don't understand what you've gotten into. I understand he treats me with more respect than you did. He's using you. Can't you see that? He's what I was to you. Zyla kept her voice level. An accessory? A strategic asset? Someone to display when useful and dismiss when not. That's not fair. You announced our open marriage to 300 people without asking me first. You decided I wasn't enough without a conversation. Fair doesn't exist between us anymore. Ethan grabbed her arm. Zyla, listen. Security materialized. 2 men in dark suits who'd apparently been invisible until needed. One stepped between Zyla and Ethan. The other spoke into a nearly invisible mic. Contact made. Miss Carter appears unharmed but shaken. I'm fine, Zyla said quickly. To Ethan, don't touch me again. Ethan's eyes widened as he realized what had just happened. You have security? He has you under surveillance. He has me protected. There's a difference. This is insane, Zyla. He's controlling you. He's respecting me. She stepped back, which you never did. She walked out. The security team followed at a discreet distance. Her phone buzzed immediately. June, are you okay? How did you know? Security team reported contact. Do you want me there? Zyla stared at the text. He was asking, not assuming, not commanding. No, I'm fine. But thank you for asking. Always. And Zyla? Yes. You handled that perfectly. That night, unable to sleep, Zyla called June at 1 a.m. Can't sleep? His voice was alert. He'd probably been working. Tell me about your code. My code? You said you have rules. Ethics. I need to understand them. June was quiet for a moment. Why now? Because Ethan looked genuinely afraid today, and I need to know if I should be too. Fair question. She heard him moving, perhaps pouring a drink. I don't lie. I don't cheat. I don't break agreements unless the other party does first. I protect what's mine, partnerships, investments, people, and I end things cleanly when they're done. And threats. I eliminate them. Legally. Strategically. But always within boundaries. He paused. I've never physically harmed anyone. Never needed to. Power properly applied rarely requires force. That should sound threatening. But it doesn't, June observed. Because you know I'm pointing it outward, not at you. Ethan said you're using me. I am. That's not a secret. I told you exactly what I needed from this arrangement. His voice remained steady. But using you doesn't mean diminishing you. It means leveraging your strengths for mutual benefit. Ethan used you by erasing your strengths. I use you by amplifying them. That's terrifyingly logical. Welcome to my world. A pause. Can you sleep now? Maybe. Good. We have the Museum of Modern Art fundraiser tomorrow. Your ex-husband will definitely be there. His mother is on the board. Zyla groaned. Perfect. Wear red. It photographs well. And Zyla, yes. If he approaches you again, don't engage. Security will handle it. You focus on networking with the architectural firms attending. I've arranged introductions with 3 who are hiring. You're building my career while destroying his. I'm correcting an inefficiency. June's voice held a hint of satisfaction. Good night, Zyla. Good night. She hung up and finally slept, protected by invisible watchers and partnered with a man whose particular brand of care felt less like control and more like freedom. The medical records arrived on a Tuesday. Zyla was reviewing architectural proposals in her apartment when Minji knocked. Unusual, June's assistant typically called first. Ms. Carter, you need to see this immediately. The envelope was thick. Legal letterhead. Zyla's hands trembled as she opened it. Comprehensive medical review, fertility assessment. She'd never requested this. June ordered it, Minji said quietly. Not to invade your privacy. To verify something he suspected. Zyla scanned the documents. Dense medical terminology. Test results. Comparative analyses. Then she saw it. Patient demonstrates normal ovarian function. No impediments to natural conception. Historical fertility treatments were unnecessary and potentially harmful given the actual source of conception difficulties. Her vision blurred. Further investigation reveals Mr. Ethan Carter's medical records indicate severe oligospermia, a condition diagnosed 4 years prior to marriage but never disclosed to patient. The words wouldn't stay still on the page. Ethan had known. For years, he'd known he was infertile, and he'd let her believe it was her fault. Let her endure treatments. Let her think she was broken. There's more, Minji said gently, which should have been impossible given her usual crisp efficiency. The next page contained appointment records. Ethan had been seeing fertility specialists since college. Diagnosed, treated, told his chances of natural conception were statistically negligible. He'd married her knowing he couldn't give her children. And when it didn't happen, he'd let her shoulder the blame. The open marriage, Zyla whispered, was cover, Minji confirmed. He needed an excuse for why there were no children without admitting the truth. He made you available so he could pursue surrogacy or adoption arrangements without you knowing. Keep you as the public wife while building a family elsewhere. Zyla's hands shook so hard the papers scattered. How did June know? He didn't. He suspected. Minji gathered the documents carefully. When Mr. Carter announced the open marriage so publicly, June thought it was strange. Men who actually want open marriages typically negotiate privately. Public announcements serve different purposes. Control and misdirection. Minji handed her water. June asked me to stay while you process this. Would you like me to call him? No. Yes. I don't. Zyla pressed her palms against her eyes. 5 years. 5 years of thinking she was failing. 5 years of treatments and hope and crushing disappointment. And it had all been a lie. Her phone buzzed. June. Minji told me you're reading the report. I'm coming over. You don't need to. I'm already in the car. June arrived 18 minutes later. He must have broken every traffic law. Zyla was still sitting on the floor, surrounded by medical documents. When he entered, he'd used the key she'd given him for emergencies. This apparently qualified. He sat beside her. Didn't touch her. Just sat. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what? You didn't. For being right. I know you hoped I wasn't. His voice was careful, gentle. The medical investigation was supposed to give you answers. Not this specific answer. He knew. Zyla's voice broke. The whole time he knew. And he let me think. That you were deficient. That you were failing him. That your body was the problem. June's jaw tightened. It's possibly the cruelest thing he could have done. Why? The question came out raw. Why would someone do that? Because admitting his infertility would have made him vulnerable. Ethan Carter doesn't do vulnerable. So he made you vulnerable instead. Zyla looked at the scattered papers. Years of her life, reduced to evidence of someone else's deception. The open marriage was never about freedom, she said slowly. It was about replacing me without divorcing me. Finding someone who could give him children while I remained the legitimate wife. And blaming you for the failure maintained his image as the magnanimous partner trying to work through difficulties. June's voice held cold fury. It was comprehensive erasure disguised as progressive thinking. I want to destroy him. I know. I want everyone to know what he did. They will. June met her eyes. But not impulsively. Carefully. Strategically. So thoroughly that he can't rebuild. How? First, we let him make more mistakes. Desperate men do stupid things. June shifted slightly. Second, we give you what he stole. What do you mean? You wanted children. You can have them. Not with him. Not in that lie. He paused. But on your terms. When you're ready. With someone who deserves you. Zyla stared at him. Are you offering? I'm offering options. Autonomy. Truth. His expression was unreadable. If you want a family eventually, I won't stand in the way. That's not part of our arrangement's boundaries. But you said this arrangement would end. Arrangements end. Partnerships evolve. June stood, offered his hand. Come on. You're not staying here tonight drowning in his lies. Where? My place. Guest room. Security. Pizza and bad television. No discussion unless you initiate it. Zyla took his hand. Let him pull her up. This feels like more than partnership. Then maybe our arrangement is evolving faster than anticipated. June grabbed her jacket. We can analyze it later. Right now, you need space from this. In his car, watching Manhattan blur past, Zyla finally asked the question keeping her paralyzed. What if I want it? Want what? A family. Children. The life Ethan pretended we'd have. Her voice was small. What if that's still what I want? June didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was careful. Then we'll figure it out. Not tonight. Not this week. But when you're ready. If you're ready, we'll discuss options honestly. He glanced at her. Unlike Ethan, I won't let you build dreams on lies. That's not a plan. No, it's a promise. They reached his building. He led her upstairs to a guest room that was somehow already prepared. Fresh linens, toiletries. One of his t-shirts laid out because he'd anticipated she wouldn't want to wear the clothes she'd worn while learning the truth. Pizza arrives in 20 minutes, June said from the doorway. Bad television selections are on the coffee table. I'll be in my office if you need anything. Otherwise, I'll leave you alone until you're ready. June. He paused. Thank you for finding the truth, even though it hurts. Truth always hurts less than prolonged deception. He turned to leave, then stopped. Zyla? He didn't deserve you. Not for a single day of those 5 years. Remember that. The door closed quietly. Zyla changed into his t-shirt, sat on the guest bed, and finally let herself cry for the life she'd thought she was building and the man who'd made sure she couldn't. In his office, June made 3 phone calls. The first to his attorney. Prepare additional evidence documentation. Medical fraud. Emotional manipulation. I want every legal angle covered. The second to Minji. Clear Zyla's schedule for the rest of the week. She needs time. The third to someone whose name he didn't say. Carter's losing control. Watch him closely. When he makes his move, I want documentation. Then he returned to his work, leaving the door slightly ajar in case Zyla needed him. Partnership, he'd told her. But watching her unravel from someone else's cruelty, June was beginning to suspect they'd both underestimated what this arrangement was becoming. Zyla stayed in June's guest room for 4 days. He didn't push, didn't hover. He simply existed in adjacent spaces, working in his office while she processed in the living room, ordering meals that appeared at regular intervals, leaving books she might like on the coffee table. On the 5th morning, she found him in the kitchen making coffee. I need to get back to work, she announced. June looked up, assessed her, nodded. You have 3 project proposals waiting. All firms you'd researched before. All real opportunities, not charity. How do you know I researched them? Because I pay attention. He poured her coffee, remembering without asking that she took it black. Minji compiled the proposals yesterday. They're in the folder by your laptop. Zyla sat at his kitchen island. The apartment was beautiful, minimalist, expensive, surprisingly warm. She'd been living in it for 4 days, but was only now really seeing it. Can I ask you something personal? June leaned against the counter. Yes. Why aren't you married? I mean, before this arrangement. Because I've never met anyone who wanted partnership over performance. He said it matter-of-factly. Most people in my world want to marry wealth or power or status. They don't want to marry a person. That's cynical. That's experience. He sipped his coffee. I watched my parents perform a marriage for 40 years. Perfect on the outside, hollow on the inside. I decided if I couldn't have authenticity, I'd have efficiency instead. And then I stumbled into your life. And then you stumbled into my life, he agreed. Carrying someone else's humiliation and your own fury. Does it bother you that I'm not Korean? The question surprised him. No. Does it bother you? I don't know yet. Zyla traced the rim of her mug. I don't know how to be part of your world. Your culture. Your expectations. You're not part of my world. You're building your own. June set down his coffee. That's the point, Zyla. I'm not asking you to fit anywhere. I'm asking you to expand into spaces you already deserve. That sounds like something you rehearsed. It is. I've been thinking about how to say it for 3 days. He smiled slightly. How'd I do? Terrifyingly well. The shift happened gradually, then suddenly. They started having dinner together. Real dinners, not strategic planning sessions disguised as meals. June taught her about Korean cuisine his grandmother used to make. Zyla introduced him to Southern cooking her mother had perfected. They attended events as planned, but the performances became less performative. June's hand on her back felt natural rather than strategic. Zyla's laugh at his dry observations was genuine rather than obligatory. One evening, 3 weeks after the medical records revelation, they were reviewing proposals in his office when Zyla asked, "What if I want to keep this?" June looked up from his laptop. Keep what? This. Us. The arrangement that's becoming, not an arrangement. He closed the laptop carefully. What are you asking, Zyla? I'm asking if this has an expiration date we're pretending doesn't exist. All relationships have potential expiration dates. Marriage, partnership, friendship. June's voice was measured. The question is whether we're building something that wants to continue or something that needs to end cleanly. Which do you want? I stopped operating purely strategically around you 6 weeks ago. He met her eyes. I didn't plan for that. I don't know how to calculate it. But pretending I'm still following the original arrangement would be dishonest. Zyla's heart hammered. So what are we doing? I think we're building something new. June stood, moved closer. Something neither of us planned for, and both of us are terrible at naming. That's not an answer. Then here's an answer. He took her hand. I care about you. Not as an asset. Not as a strategic partner. As Zyla, the architect who rebuilds herself daily. The woman who turned humiliation into power. The person who makes me want to be less efficient and more human. June, I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight. I'm telling you I've already decided. His thumb traced her palm. Whatever this becomes, I'm choosing to be here for it. Zyla looked at their joined hands. Felt the truth settling into her bones. I'm falling in love with you, she whispered. And I don't know if that's real or trauma response or it's real. June's voice was certain. Because I'm falling in love with you too. And I've never confused business strategy with emotion before. They stood in his office, holding hands, while the city glittered outside his windows. This is terrifying, Zyla said. Yes. This could end badly. Yes. But you're staying anyway? Yes. June lifted her hand, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Because some risks are worth taking. And you, Zyla Carter, are the best risk I've ever calculated. She kissed him then. Not performed for cameras. Not strategic for witnesses. Just them, in his office, building something that had started as protection and become choice. When they finally pulled apart, June asked, What do you want? Really, I want to finish rebuilding my career. I want to design buildings that matter. She stopped. Say it. I want a family eventually. Children. The life Ethan lied about. Zyla met his eyes. Can we have that? In whatever this becomes. June was quiet for a long moment. Then, I don't know if I'll be a good father. I didn't have a great model. But if you want that future, I'm willing to learn. That's not a guarantee. No. It's a promise to try. He pulled her closer. Unlike your ex-husband, I won't promise what I can't deliver. But I promise I'll never lie about what's possible. What if I want to start trying now? June's expression shifted. Surprise. Caution. Hope. Now. Not tonight. But soon. Not as strategy. As choice. Zyla's voice strengthened. Ethan stole 5 years of my life with lies about fertility. I won't let him steal my future too. If I want children, I'll have them. On my terms. With someone who won't weaponize my body against me. You want this with me? I want this with someone who sees me. Respects me. Chooses me. She held his gaze. That's you, June. Whether we planned it or not. This changes everything. Yes. We should discuss timing. Logistics. Medical consultation. Zyla kissed him again. We'll discuss it all. Later. Right now, I just need you to tell me you're in. June wrapped his arms around her. I'm in. Completely. Terrifyingly. Irreversibly in. They stood together in his office, holding each other, while outside, Ethan Carter's world continued crumbling, and theirs began building towards something neither had expected, but both were choosing anyway. The pregnancy test was positive 6 weeks later. Zyla stared at the 2 lines, her hands shaking. She'd taken 3 tests. All positive. All impossible. All real. She was in June's bathroom, their bathroom now, since she'd officially moved in 2 weeks prior. Her toothbrush beside his. Her skincare products sharing counter space with his. A life built in small domestic details. And now this. June knocked softly. Zyla, you've been in there 20 minutes. Are you okay? She opened the door. Held up the test. His expression shifted through surprise, calculation, and something that looked remarkably like joy before settling on careful concern. How do you feel? Terrified. Happy. Sick. She laughed shakily. All of it simultaneously. June pulled her into his arms. We'll handle it. Together. However you want to handle it. I want to keep it. The words came out fast, certain. I know we just started this. I know it's fast, but then we keep it. June's voice was absolute. No hesitation. No regret. We chose this possibility. Now we choose the reality. Zyla pressed her face against his chest. Ethan's going to lose his mind. Ethan's already lost his mind. This will just make it visible. He was right. The news leaked within 2 weeks. Someone from the medical office, likely paid by Ethan's team, confirmed to gossip sites that Zyla Carter had undergone pregnancy confirmation. The media explosion was immediate. From infertile marriage to pregnant in months. The Zyla Carter timeline. Billionaire June Seohan reportedly thrilled about impending fatherhood. Sources say Ethan Carter devastated by ex-wife's pregnancy. The articles were vicious. They questioned timing, implied infidelity during the marriage, suggested Zyla had lied about fertility issues to trap June. Every headline was designed to destroy. And behind every article, Ethan's fingerprints were obvious. He's panicking, Minji reported during an emergency meeting at June's office. His investors are asking questions. His board is concerned. The public fertility revelation combined with your pregnancy has people calculating timelines. Good, June said coldly. Let them calculate. There's more. Minji pulled up a file on her tablet. We've obtained evidence that Ethan has been secretly consulting surrogacy agencies for the past 3 years. Multiple applications, all while publicly presenting you as his wife working through fertility challenges. Zyla felt sick. He was going to replace me. Completely. He was going to keep you as the public wife while building a real family elsewhere, June corrected. His voice was ice. Which is why we're releasing everything tomorrow. Everything. Medical records proving his infertility. Applications to surrogacy agencies. Communications with his lawyers about maintaining your marriage while pursuing parenthood elsewhere. The entire architecture of his deception. June's expression was merciless. We're not letting him control this narrative anymore. That's nuclear, Zyla whispered. He went nuclear first, Minji said quietly, when he let you believe you were broken for 5 years. The release was coordinated with surgical precision. June's legal team provided documentation to major outlets simultaneously. By noon the next day, the story had shifted completely. Comprehensive deception. How Ethan Carter built an empire on his wife's humiliation. Medical records reveal years of fertility, lies, and Carter marriage. From progressive to predatory. The truth about Ethan Carter's open marriage announcement. The business consequences were immediate. Investors pulled funding. Board members resigned. 3 major partnerships dissolved within 48 hours. Carter Enterprises' stock plummeted. And through it all, June protected Zyla. Security doubled. Media statements were issued through his team. He personally escorted her to every medical appointment, his hand on her back, his presence a wall between her and the chaos Ethan had created. 1 week after the release, Ethan tried to contact her directly. The email was long, desperate, full of justifications and apologies and explanations that amounted to, I was protecting myself. Zyla read it once, deleted it, forwarded the address to June's security team for blocking. She was done carrying Ethan's lies. The confrontation was inevitable. Ethan ambushed them outside a restaurant. He looked terrible, exhausted, unshaven, desperate. Nothing like the polished CEO who'd announced their open marriage 12 weeks prior. Zyla, please. I need to explain. June stepped between them immediately. Mr. Carter, this is harassment. I'm talking to my wife. Ex-wife, Zyla corrected, her voice steady. As of 10 weeks ago. Because he manipulated you. Can't you see that? He found you vulnerable and used you. The way you did for 5 years. Zyla stepped forward, June's presence solid beside her. Let me be very clear, Ethan. You lied about your fertility. You let me endure treatments you knew were useless. You humiliated me publicly to cover your own inadequacy. You tried to replace me while keeping me attached for image purposes. That's not. I was trying to protect yourself. You were protecting yourself. Zyla's voice strengthened. June didn't manipulate me. He gave me truth, resources, respect, everything you withheld. You're pregnant, Ethan said desperately. That's my. Finish that sentence carefully, June said quietly. The threat in his voice was absolute. Ethan's face crumpled. I could have given you that. We could have found a way. Surrogacy, adoption. You were pursuing those options without me, Zyla interrupted. While I thought I was failing our marriage. While you let me believe my body was broken. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. So you chose cruelty instead of honesty. Zyla took June's hand. The gesture was deliberate. Final. I'm done, Ethan. You don't get to rewrite this now that the truth is public. You don't get forgiveness or understanding. You get consequences. Zyla, please. Goodbye, Ethan. She walked past him. June followed, his security team materializing to ensure Ethan didn't pursue. In the car, Zyla finally exhaled. Is it over? The personal part is, June said. The business consequences will continue for a while. But yes, your part is over. Our part, Zyla corrected. It's our life now. June lifted her hand, kissed her palm. Our life. Our family. Our future. Zyla rested her head on his shoulder, feeling their child, barely the size of a grain of rice, growing between them. Built on truth instead of lies. Choice instead of manipulation. I love you, she said. I love you, June replied. And unlike your ex-husband, I'll prove it every day instead of just saying it once. The wedding took place 93 days after the gala. Not a spectacle, not a statement. Just 50 people who mattered in a garden ceremony at June's estate in Westchester. Zyla wore cream silk that accommodated her barely visible pregnancy. June wore traditional Korean formal wear, a gesture to heritage she'd asked him to honor. Their vows were simple, honest, a promise to build together what they'd both been denied before. Ethan's final email had arrived that morning. She'd let June read it first. I see now that I lost you long before June found you. I'm sorry. For everything. For what it's worth, I hope you're happy. Surprisingly mature, June had commented. Surprisingly late, Zyla had replied. She hadn't responded. There was nothing left to say. The reception was intimate. Zyla's mother cried through the entire ceremony. June's parents, who'd flown in from Seoul, looked stunned but pleased. Minji caught the bouquet and looked horrified, which made everyone laugh. During their first dance, June whispered, "Regrets? About which part? Marrying you? None. About staying with Ethan as long as I did? Daily." Zyla leaned into him. "But I'm choosing to view it as necessary history rather than wasted time. That's healthy. I've been reading psychology books." "Of course you have." They swayed together, her hand resting unconsciously on her stomach where their future was literally growing. "Tell me about the business," Zyla said. "I know you've been managing fallout from the Ethan situation. Carter Enterprises is restructuring under new leadership. Ethan's out. His investors forced him out 3 weeks ago." June's voice held no satisfaction. "Just fact. He'll land somewhere. Men like him always do. But he'll never have the power he had before. Because of us." "Because of truth," June corrected. "We just made sure truth was louder than his lies. That's not how most people operate. Most people aren't us." The song changed. More couples joined them on the dance floor. Zyla caught sight of her architectural partners, women from 3 different firms who'd hired her for projects after seeing her work. She'd been building again, designing, creating things that mattered. "I have news," she said suddenly. June pulled back to look at her. "Good news or complicated news?" "Good news. The Hudson River project got approved. Full funding. They want me to lead design." "That's the sustainable housing development?" 8 buildings. 12 now. They expanded scope. Zyla couldn't hide her smile. "It's the biggest project I've ever led. It'll take 3 years minimum." "That's incredible." June spun her gently. "How do you feel?" "Terrified. Excited. Certain." She met his eyes. "Ready to build buildings or build our life?" "Both. Simultaneously. Probably chaotically. My favorite kind of project," June said. "Ambitious, complex, and likely to exceed expectations." They danced until the song ended, then were pulled into conversations with guests. June's business associates. Zyla's architectural colleagues. People who saw them as partners rather than as someone and their accessory. Later, as the reception wound down, Zyla found herself standing at the garden's edge, looking out at the property. June appeared beside her, carrying champagne for himself and sparkling water for her. "Tired?" "No. Just processing." Zyla accepted the water. 6 months ago, I was standing in a ballroom being publicly humiliated. Now I'm married to you, pregnant, leading the biggest architectural project of my career. Sounds like you turned humiliation into power. Sounds like I had help." June wrapped his arm around her. "You would have done it without me. Maybe slower, maybe differently, but you would have found your way." "I don't believe that." "I do." He kissed her temple. "I accelerated your timeline. I didn't create your capability." Zyla leaned into him, feeling the solid certainty of his presence. "What happens next? In our story, we build the life we design together. Raise a child. Probably have arguments about parenting styles. Definitely disagree about decorating choices." June's voice was warm. "The ordinary extraordinary of partnership." "That sounds perfect." "It sounds realistic," he corrected. "Which is better than perfect." They stood together, watching the sun set over gardens where 50 people who mattered had witnessed them choose each other. Inside, Minji was coordinating cleanup with military efficiency. Zyla's mother was charming Jun's parents with surprising success. The world continued turning while theirs expanded. June. Yes. Thank you. For replacing my husband with something better. He turned to look at her. I didn't replace your husband. Yes, you did. That first night, you offered. I offered to replace what he provided. Status. Security. Respect. June took her hand. But I didn't replace him as a person. I built something new with you. From scratch. Together. That's a meaningful distinction. It's the only distinction that matters. He pulled her close. You didn't trade one man for another. You chose to build a different life entirely. Zyla rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady beneath expensive fabric. I choose you, she said quietly. Every day, not as replacement or upgrade, just as you. And I choose you, June replied. The architect, the survivor, the woman who turned public humiliation into private power. They returned to the reception together, ready to start their marriage with the same honesty they'd built their partnership on. Behind them, the sun finished setting on the life Zyla had left behind. Ahead, everything glittered with possibility. 9 months later, Zyla gave birth to a daughter. They named her Grace, for the elegance Zyla had maintained through humiliation, for the Korean meaning of blessing June's mother suggested. Ethan sent flowers to the hospital. Zyla donated them to the maternity ward without reading the card. She was too busy holding her daughter, watching June transform from calculated businessman to bewildered father, building a family on truth instead of deception. Carter Enterprises eventually recovered under new leadership. Ethan moved to California, remarried someone who understood his needs, and occasionally appeared in business publications. Zyla never thought about him. She was too busy designing buildings, raising Grace, and partnering with a man who'd offered to replace her husband and instead had helped her replace her entire life. On their first anniversary, June gave her a card. Inside, in his precise handwriting, "Thank you for turning my strategic acquisition into the best decision I never planned to make." Zyla laughed, cried, held him close while their daughter slept between them. She'd been humiliated in front of Manhattan's elite. She'd collided with power in a hallway. She'd accepted an offer that should have been impossible. And she'd built a life that was far better than any she'd imagined in that marriage where she'd been slowly erased. Some stories begin with humiliation. The best ones end with choice.